So Keep On Smiling, has really had some legs. And what I love about that song is unlike some songs from the 70s where that was cool back then, but it's kind of dated now. And and like this song, the lyric, everything about it is just, it's uplifting, and it's just been great to see that it keeps coming back around. And
Right.
as as we were talking, so the lyrics just kind of came to you.
Yeah, I wrote it, and I wrote these words down as a pep talk to myself. This is Jimmy Hall looking in the mirror, said, "So, you say you got the blues? You got holes in your shoes, you feel alone, you're confused. Just keep on smiling." People, when I was growing up, they said, "You got a great smile. You got to do that more often."
Keep on
So
smiling.
keep on smiling. You're about to go insane. You say your woman's playing games, and she says that you're to blame. So, and I was in a relationship with my longtime girlfriend at the time, and we were trying to figure out, is this what we want to do? We want to keep doing this? Is this going to be forever, or God, there's a whole world out here, and I'm on the road, and there's a lot of, and I'll be gone, and so just trying to figure all this out. The other piece of it is, I wrote these lyrics, I presented to Ricky Hirsch, and I said, "What do you think about this?" Here's an adjunct to this whole idea. In 72, we're touring around, we're playing New York City. We have a friend who's a journalist with a musical magazine,
Right.
Soul Sounds magazine or something like that. And he befriended us, Rod Bristow. He would come and say, "Man," and he knew Jay Giles and some of these guys, but he said, "Man, I like you guys. Well, let's hang out." He said, "You want to go to a cool concert?" And I said, "What?" He said, "There's this Jamaican group playing in Kansas City, and I kind of know their manager, or I know some of them, whatever. I want you to hear this group." "Okay, let's go." So he takes us over, Max's Kansas City. And for one thing, they got an opening solo guy with an acoustic guitar, and it's Bruce Springsteen. And he's playing, just
By
banging
himself.
away and singing "Spirit in the Night, all right." And he's, and he's doing his thing. I say, "Hey." So, and then this Jamaican group comes on, and it just blows our mind. And it's Bob Marley and the Wailers. And
Wow.
one of their first tours, and they're just getting well known, or just getting breaking through. And we listen to them, and then just hear, that is so cool. This whole vibe.
So
We hung out with them after the show, and Rod knew him. They say, "Yeah, come to the hotel. We're gonna just living it up. Just go over to Chelsea or whatever it was,
Yeah.
And I don't really remember like smoking pot or whatever that people would think, "Oh yeah, that's got to be what you got stoned."
Right, yeah.
What I remember is some of these guys they're very health conscious, because they go, "You're on the road and you got to take care of your health. We make this really good, healthy drink. And you take some good whole milk and put it in a pan and warm it up, boil it. And we take this green bananas, or it could have been plantains, but they mashed it into a pulp and mixed it all together. Said, this is going to keep you strong. It's got calcium. And they tell me all this stuff. And so I remember just drinking this stuff going, we're hanging out with these cool Jamaicans and loving their music. So that inspired Ricky to come up with dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun. He kind of would have dun 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 dun. I said, man, I love that. Let's see. So I started singing along with that and just forming it. And so we were rehearsing it, and Tom Dowd was I love the vision of him in the studio, in the recording room where we are. And I've come out of the booth so that we can all be kind of in a circle. And we play the song through some. He said, and he would kind of have his hands like this. He'd close his eyes and he'd walk in front of every instrument. And he'd walk around and listen as the song was progressing. And he, play this, play that. And he at one point said, let's stop, wait. Let's talk about the arrangement. I love the song, he said. I love this song. You have a harmonica solo, which I'm always going to do that if I can incorporate it.
Yeah, sure.
Just give it a shot. And it worked. But he said, you've got good verses, got good chorus. You really don't have a bridge. Kind of a left turn, a little change up. So try this. I had this last verse. He said, what's your verse? He said, you're just hanging out in a local bar. You're wondering who the hell you are. And for me, it was like I was living in the country, little rented farmhouse, growing vegetables and being a vegetarian hippie, kind of just very peaceful place to be when you were always on the road.
Right.
Good to come home to. So, in the line, so are you a farmer? Are you a star? Maybe you could be both. I don't know. So, okay, let's just everybody break it down. And so hit the one chord. And so he said, drum a coin, yeah, hit the bass drum and the snare. Boom. Just hanging out, boom, in a local bar. And you're wondering who the hell you are. Are you a farmer? Boom. Are you a star? And he said, right there, bam, everybody in on the chorus. Give it everything you got, big chorus, and vamp out on that. And we're going to smile. And we did the answer part.
Right.
Long ended.
But that breakdown really brought it all home.
It brought it all home. And that's, like I said, it was in that movie with Gwyneth Paltrow. And that's when she's standing up on a bar and she's really falling hard off the wagon. And she's singing along, and it's playing on the jukebox. So it's me singing and she's singing. And you're wondering who there. So, yeah, you're hanging out in a local bar. See that?
Right.
And the same music supervisor put it in Country Strong that put it in this new Roadhouse movie.
Great song. Has
Randall Poster. And he said, somehow I reached him when he put it in that first movie, emailed or whatever. And he said, I've always loved this song and I wanted to find a good spot for it. And it finally came up on this Country Strong. Now we found another spot. Thank you, Randall Poster.
That's great. I love it. And so to talk about slightly more recent stuff.
Yeah.
So you got a relatively new album that came out that Joe Bonamassa produced.
Yes.
How did that come about?
I'll tell you what. So my first solo albums were in the 80s. I did kind of 2 back-to-back. And that's why I moved to Nashville and did 2 albums for Epic. And Norbert Putnam helped with those. Moving forward, I did Rendezvous with the Blues was about 97 or so, 96, 97. And some of the best work my good friend Jack Pearson ever did.
Yep.
With me or with anybody.
Yeah. Great guitar player.
I did a project that's an Eddie Hinton tribute called Build Your Own Fire. It didn't really get the notice that maybe it could have, but it was fun and it was good material. So it was way past time for me to do another solo record. And I'd been thinking about songs or gathering a few, but I started working with Joe Bonamassa, and his presence here was really building. I mean, he has a place here, recorded, and I'd heard him play around town. I heard him, was on a festival with him out in Colorado when I really became a fan. But he gave me a call. He was, and so did Reese Winans. So Reese Winans was having a big birthday. And Joe, this is what Reese had called me about. He said, Joe's going to produce an album for me for my birthday. He's going to put, and he told me, invite whoever you want as special guests. If it's not too hard to get them, we're going to get everybody you want on this record. So he had kept Mo, he called me, and Mike Ferris, and it goes on and on. Bonnie Bramlett, a lot of great singers. And Reese said, and Joe's going to produce it. I said, that could be cool. And so I talked to Joe a little bit about it. He was really excited. And he paid well. I'm going to say that. And there's another subject we'll get into AFM and what we stand for. But we worked it out, and he paid us well. And, I wanted to do it anyway, but he really helped out. And so I sang a duet with Bonnie Bramlett called Hard to Be. It was one of the Vaughan Brothers songs on that solo album that they did. His two brothers. And another one called Sweet Release that was more of a everybody in the whole cast, all the singers sang one verse and a piece of it. So going into it and working on these sessions with Joe, I really found he had a knack for it. He had a natural ability to produce and work with a singer. He knew when to say, hey, we got it. We don't need to push it. You got it already, like within the 3 takes. And I really enjoyed that process. And later on, excuse me, y'all, Joe has these cruises. KTBA, Keeping the Blues Alive, was a cruise that he's done every year. He said, can you do a cruise with us? We're going to do these songs that are on Reese's album. We're going to present them live. And so I got on the cruise, and we just had a lot of fun.
So Joe Bonamassa invited you to be part of this thing with Reese Winans.
Right.
And then it just blew up and ended up becoming your latest record.
What actually it did is it more or less cemented, or we got to know each other, Joe and I. He was a big fan, and the joke was, I don't know if I ever said this to him, but it stuck. So he always said, Jimmy, you sing like a bird. You still sing like a bird. And that's a good thing. But he called me to sing on Joanna Connor, one of his projects. And then, and Reese's, of course. And then he got me to sing on a little bit on Eric Gale's Crown album. And there was a few projects in a row. And I remember being, and I can't remember where this little studio is, where we're doing some overdubs for Joanna's album. And I just did it. I give it all. I really enjoyed doing this song with her, and it was a lot of fun. And so we're finishing the day, and Joe's walking away, and he said, man, if you ever want to do a record, just tell me, or let's talk about it. Okay? Oh, so yeah. Okay, let's do that. So that idea, that germ was planted. And so in between, COVID hit us about that time.
Yeah.
During COVID year, I actually did a Bonamassa cruise in March before COVID. Later that year, in September, he did a live stream from the Ryman. And it was playing his album that he did called Royalty, T-E-A, Royalty, that I guess initially recorded in London. He said, I'm going to do these songs, and I want you to play harp on this one cut that had a harmonica player on it on the record. So I rehearsed with the band, and we did that song. And then he said, okay, now play on this other song too, because it's got a real swing and blues feel. And so we do this live stream from the Ryman, no audience. If you're not performing, well, we were being careful. And
for good reason.
Vaccinated, whatever, wear a mask when you can. And of course you can't when you sing and play hard, but just be safe. I'll never forget, because he put cardboard cutouts of audience members in the seats so he could visualize some fans. And he had cutouts of his parents and of other friends. And he also, somehow he had an offer to people that I guess you could buy these tickets, virtual, to sign on and watch it, but you get VIP level. You could send in your picture and they'd make a cutout for you. So that's funny.
Pretty creative.
But things are going really well. I remember Rob McNally. Rob McNally was playing guitar in that also. And
great player.
And Michael Rhodes and Reese. Yeah. And oh God, who was playing drums?
Would have been the guy that used to play on the Letterman show.
No, not him.
Anton. Was it Greg Morrow?
Yes, Greg Morrow was playing drums.
Another great Nashville.
But we were
player.
Nailing it, and Joe was having a great time, and it was high five time. Everybody was. We were all lifted up, and Joe's one of his partners, Roy Wiseman, is his company. Joe's is called J&R Adventures. That's the legal name. So Roy was there. So he and Joe were hanging out together, and he said, let's make this record. We're gonna make a deal right now. Let's just sit down and just talk a little bit about it. Let's do this. And that's when we committed. So here's the time frame. He said, send me whatever songs you've got on hold or that you are thinking about recording.
Right.
And send those to me. And I've got some ideas. And let's shoot for, so this is 20, we shot for January 21, in the month of January. And in between, I was sending him songs and some that I had been writing with Jeff Silbar.
Yep.
And he and I wrote, by that time we'd written one that got some notes, a song called Long Goodbye that I recorded once before, but not like we finally did it with Joe. And we started the process. We kind of honed in on the direction. First, Joe was going, maybe, you're a great blues player. I love your singing, when you sing blues and play harmonica. Let's just do a Roadhouse blues album. Let's just do a Saturday night at some blues clubs thing that just has that vibe. And I said, let me think about it. And I started thinking about what I really want to do is present some of my material that I'm writing about my life, some ideas that really come from my heart. And so I wrote some more with Jeff Silbar while I was out in LA with him. And we came up with the song Jumping for Joy, which leads off the record. And another one called Ready Now, which Ready Now was an idea when I said, I'm writing this and I want this to be the title track. Because I am ready now for another record. I am ready now. And the lyrics on this song were very close to my heart, or what I wanted to get out. and it was about making changes. It was for anybody that had a habit they wanted to get rid of, or had a lifestyle they wanted to change, or they wanted to move forward in life. And I could get really deep into it because I lost my youngest brother, is the youngest of my 6 siblings, during this period. And so, but he got to hear the demo of this song before he passed. And he passed because of his alcoholism, coupled with the fact that he ended up with a rare form of cancer, which took him down fast.
Yeah.
But he fought it. And before he went into one of the very last rehab program that he was in, there toward the end, he listened to that song and he said, I am ready now.
Wow.
I am ready for this. And I thank you for sending me this song and these words.
I mean, that's the power of music. You know, you can say something that means one thing to you, and somebody else takes it on to a whole other place. That's the universality.
I wanted to make it that way, so it was a little more universal to anybody that wanted to move forward and have a better life. And so the writing process, I had these songs with Jeff, and Joe really loved what we had. I mean, he said, these are strong. What about writing with some other writers here in town and just see, no pressure, but I think you're going to find that you'll come up with some great ideas if you're working with some other people that you kind of find a comfort zone with. So Tom Hambridge was one.
Mm-hmm.
Heidi Newfield. We kind of worked through some ideas and made 2 cool songs out of that. Joe and Hambridge and I came up with a couple that, one in particular called Rising Up, which has the same thematic feel as Ready Now. It's just being uplifting and moving forward.
That's beautiful that you can still see that as an inspiration instead of just looking in the rearview mirror all the time, that you're still looking forward, man.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And I had to let go of any trepidation, any worries, anxiety about, well, I don't know this guy, or I didn't know Heidi, really. I knew she was a harp player, and so it's like a blind date, you got to get them some familiarity. You got to let me get to know you a little bit.
Right, because the art of writing a song, collaborating, it gets to a very high level of communication very quickly.
Yeah, and
when it's working.
And what can work is you got to have the ability to let go of an idea that's not going to work. I mean, and you throw it back and forth, and you say, what do you think about this line? Well, I don't love it. Let's see how it sings, and blah, blah, blah. So I'd gotten to that point with Jeff Silbar where we could, no, yes, no, and we just call, and it was fast. It wasn't like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
This is
Let me talk you into this.
Yeah. Whether you want it or not, I'm going to talk you into it. So I worked through that with Jeff through the years. And so getting to that point with even Joe, Tom and I worked together before. And it was, whatever.
Yeah, but he's very talented guy.
He is. And he writes that way with a lot of his artists.
Yeah. So,
when we came up with Rising Up and another one called The Girls Got Sugar, which is kind of a blues rave up kind of fun song. And so along that line, it was just James House was another writer that we worked on a few ideas, and we were writing a song about love, and and his idea was more, I can't get away from your love. In the beginning, no matter what I do, I can't get away. And I liked the melody. He had a big soaring melody. I said, I'm singing this song. Why do I want to get away from her love? If it's love, if it's lifetime love. Because my partner, the wind beneath my wings, if you want to get into that, and my soulmate is Karen, my wife Karen. And there's nothing more I want to do than write a beautiful song or an emotional song about her and the way we love each other. And so we turned it in from I Can't Get Away to I Can't Live Without Your Love. I can't live without your love. And it's got this guitar pattern and vibe of kind of a Mark Knopfler. It's moody, and Joe wanted to use 12 string on it. He loved that sound, and it's more subtle, and they got a big chorus. But that was just one instance of working with these different writers and even with Joe on that song Rising Up. The first line of the first verse is, all my change goes jingle jangle. And the second line was, everyone is looking for an angle. He had to sell that line to me, and I could hear the change, and I've plenty of times had change jingle jangle in my pocket, just fidgeting around, and I came up with some alternate idea. So what about this? This might work. But he believed in that vision, that sound, that picture that it painted. I said, okay. After a while, I let go. And now it seems very natural. And it was not a really big freaking thing. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you go, I like my words, but let me try yours.
Yeah. Well, the microscope, you get them, you lose your perspective sometimes on that. And that's where collaboration is a really great thing. I mean, there are those moments where something comes to you and it's your vision, but then you can bring it to someone else who can take it to a whole other place.
Yeah. If you just let it evolve and just, okay, all right, let's just see.
Yeah.
And this is my baby here.
Right. And being able to be honest with someone you maybe don't know as well as a friend and say, yeah, that's not really working for me, and figuring out how to do that. It's, you got to really be thick-skinned and don't get your feelings, because what it's for the song. Yeah, the song
we're
comes
doing
first.
For this song.
Yeah.
And that's let's make it the best one we can, no matter if it's you or who writes it or doesn't. And we went through that process, and Joe and I would, because he did say, you just got to trust me. And I said, I do. And then later on, I joke with him. I say, in Joe, we trust. Because he was a see?
Yeah.
And he would, of course, Josh Smith was his partner in this thing. And Josh had great ideas and was a great sounding board for Joe. It was like, what do you think? What do you think? We'd doing the master vocals. I would sing one, I'd sing another one. Well, we never did more than 3 because it was always in there in the first 3. We could keep going.
And you kind of go past your exit.
We go to number 4 and 5 and say, no, it's in the first 3 because the feeling's there.
Right. Yeah. That's,
you start setting up a pattern and kind of get mechanical after that.
Yeah. And, going back to the days when you were overdubbing, you were erasing something else.
Yeah.
And now, it's like you can get to the point where there's too many choices. Okay, we got 12 vocals. I don't know which of these is right. Whereas if you do them in chunks like that, chunks of the first one, you're getting comfortable. Yeah. Second one, you're starting to feel it. Third one, you're feeling it. And you might, on the fourth one, you're starting to go through the motions.
Right.
And
you get that pattern of doing it.
Exactly. To have anybody who has the perspective to go, hold on, let's listen to what we got.
Yeah.
That's a really important thing. I've learned that for sure.
That's what I watched Joe, and Josh go through that. After, I mean, we're getting down to the final vocals, and I would sing, and then and they'd go while we were doing that particular song. We'd go through 1, 2, 3, and they'd say it's 1, it's 2, and then they'd then that's the one, and we'd move on, so that they didn't have to go back later and go which one, what
Yeah, no, if you get it in the time frame, that's absolutely true.
It saves a lot of time. But
so, have you been? Did you get out and do some shows specifically to promote the record?
Yeah. Now this one, the label really was. I know how the process was going to go. We talked a lot about it, but social media was real important, and posting some things even that we were doing in the studio, and then playing some record release shows that we came up with. And one was at 3rd and Lindsley. One was really right before it was officially released, but close enough. And I did a majority of the songs. I didn't do every single one, but I did at least 8 out of 11, because I co-wrote 9 out of the 11.
Wow, that's great.
And one of those that I didn't write, my son Ryan wrote all by himself. I mean, I kind of edited some words here. I didn't add them. I just said, that's too wordy, and you could strip that down. I just made suggestions. Yeah. So he wrote this song called Dream Release. Dream Release was the title. And I was just thrilled that he wanted to. He's a grown man now, and he's got goals. And his goal, he was having a landmark birthday. Let me tell you that. It is not a big one, but I went through it at that age. And he says, I got goals for my birthday. One of them was he ran a marathon like his mother did when she turned that age. And he ran that marathon and finished it. And she was there, and I was on the road, of course, so something was going on. And she was there cheering him on. Another one, he said, I want to write a song for your album. I said, well, it's got to stand on its own merit. You know that. He said, okay, that's my goal. Well, he wrote these great lyrics all about Greg Allman and Dwayne Allman and their life together all through their careers. And after Dwayne leaves the earth, dies early on, Greg has to move forward without his brother, who was the band leader.
Yeah.
And he was the guy.
He was the visionary.
And he was the visionary, and it was his vision to put this thing together. And Ryan put it all into words so well. Great words. And we presented it to Joe. I said, I'm not going to tell him you wrote it now, because I want him not to be...
Take it at face value.
Take it at face value, if you like. So we played it for him. Man, he just lit up, and he got really excited, because it has this ascending chorus. And I call it's a stairway to heaven, because it goes melodically. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. And same thing. Da da da. Joe says, "Man, I hear French horns," just like that. I said, "What?" He said, "I hear a brass quartet with French horns playing these and featured on this album, on this song." I said, "Okay, let's go with that," because he heard this whole orchestral feel, because that's what it is.
Right.
And so we started talking about guitar parts and whatever, and he said, so we had some guest guitarists, like Warren Haynes played on Ready Now. He played a great solo. And we had, Jared James Nichols. rock and roll guitars.
Mhm.
He played on one of the other songs. But Joe said, "No, I'm going to play guitar on this song, and I'm going to do my best Pete Townsend thing." And he wanted to play.
The big chords, yeah, right.
So he did his thing on the guitar on it, and he just made it really special. And you'll hear those.
Yeah.
It sets it apart. It's
And
the
does
most.
the French horns work?
Yeah, they did. So therefore, we haven't done this yet. Ryan and I talked and said, got to do this in Nashville Symphony. We got to do this with some of these local symphonies, because I did a couple of these. The Macon Pop Symphony wanted to do one with Chuck Lavelle and I, and we did some Almonds. We did some of my material. And
Yeah, I
the
love
Atlanta
Chuck,
Symphony,
man.
we
What a
did
great
one.
guy.
He's wonderful. And we did another one with Greg Allman and did a lot of his material with the Atlanta Symphony. And I said, yeah, we could.
Well, that'd be neat, man. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear you with the Nashville Symphony. That would be awesome. Well, man, it's so great that you're still making records and you're still out on the road.
Yeah, here's to more of that.
You know, I mean, I always find it fascinating that you've been able to balance these different things better than just about anybody, where you do your own thing, but you also know how to back other people up and make them sound
Yeah.
great. You've been working with Hank Williams Jr., which at first glance is kind of like,
No,
what?
people go, what?
And then, but you've been doing it, what, since 1992?
Yeah.
32 years. I mean, that's a
32
long
years.
time. That's a long run.
And when Hank and I talk about it, and I jumped in when Terry McMillan couldn't keep the gig for some various reasons, and they were out touring on a pretty big national tour called Rockin' Country, and Patty Loveless and Doug Stone were the opening acts. Anyway, I just jumped in, and Hank loved what I was doing. And then the fact was, they needed a band leader. They were changing some personnel. And he knew that I know a lot of players, and just from my history, that was one resource I could bring. And through the years, I've pretty much hired everybody that we have on and off. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes had to let them go, but
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
the downside of being a band
like
leader is
Derek Phillips has been on drums.
Yeah. Michelle Poe.
Michelle
right?
Poe's still on bass, and Nick Buta's was on drums, and now with Kenny Chesney.
Right.
We had a long line.
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
been a
the
fair
original
turnover. You're the
Yeah,
consistent
yeah.
part there.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and how
Like
many?
I got Mike Webb on keyboards now, and
Right.
he's just such a great adjunct.
Yeah,
Um,
great positive attitude too.
Yeah,
I love
really,
Mike.
really. And and we got Bart Walker on guitar, and it's a good flow. Mike Daly's been there with me
Sure.
for almost as long as me.
Yeah,
but,
I love Mike. Great guy.
But
I mean, that's the thing. When you're on the road, you know, it's a real camaraderie thing, and you know, one person can be a groove buster and just, you know, not even intentionally sometimes, but
yeah,
having good chemistry and people that you like and you respect each other.
yep,
Because you got, you know, you're riding a bus down the road, you got to learn how to create your own space
yeah,
and
you
give
do.
people their space when they need it. And also, but the camaraderie is great too. You know,
It
I
is.
miss riding the bus. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you do. It's your kind of extended family, and one bad apple, you know. And along the way, we've had to let people go because they needed to say, get some help, or just like my song, Ready Now. You need to go get healthy before.
Yeah.
The late great Brian Barnett was with us.
Yep.
On drums.
Yep.
And before that, I'd see him with Big and Rich, and
yeah, he played with Don Williams. He played with us.
That's
with
right.
Don Williams for a
That's
few
right.
years.
And anyway, here's to his memory.
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
fact
A lot of
that
good,
we
a lot of good folks that would
Mhm.
left us behind, but you know,
right.
but it's a delicate balance on the road, and I think it speaks well to your versatility that you can, because at any point, Jimmy, you can steal the stage from just about anyone, but you know how to not do that. And when you know, and pick your spots and make it that much more powerful.
Yeah.
I think that's
I
one of the
did
things I admire about you the most.
I did some years with Greg Allman, and became such a great friend. But between 94 and say 96, 7, he used me. We were together for Greg Allman and Friends. So we did that in the fall, in the winter. And some really great moments. And there was a period where he had to make a decision to get sober because he had to keep his health, and he had to have that liver transplant because that was key. What was good. And but thinking about how to walk that line of, I can get out there and show somebody up, or hey, give me that mic. I want to show you how. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let me show you how it's done.
Greg would encourage me to do what I do, and I can only remember maybe one night where he kind of, after the show, he said, "Can you just back down just a little bit?" In a way, in a good-hearted way. He was even laughing. You gotta give me a little break, okay?
Yeah, no, that's funny. It reminds me of early on my time with Don Williams. I was still trying to calm down enough to play properly with his band.
Right, with that.
And he just took me aside when nobody else around and just said, "David, you don't have to play what's on the records. Just don't throw me off when I'm singing." And it was like, you can be creative, just pay attention to your surroundings.
Right.
And it is, and there's an art to knowing where that invisible line exists and where to stay on it, because you know, I think, you know, it's one of the things I love. I saw Ringo not too long ago, you know, and the way he passes it around with everybody in the band.
Oh yeah.
And you know, but he's just there with that great energy, and it was really a fun show to watch. But you know, you moved to Nashville in 1980.
Yeah, I was in Macon, and it really wasn't going on.
Yeah, that period in the 70s in Macon must have been something else.
It was. And one point I want to bring up, and this is not like pat myself on the back, but Marshall, okay, we joined in 1970. We signed, and 2 brothers in our band, right? And before us, 2 Allman brothers in that band. Ironically, so we played a show in Spartanburg, South Carolina, at this club called The Ruins that a lot of people were playing back then. And his band opened up for us, 2 brothers in the band, and just the most unique mix of styles and players. And I noticed the drummer felt like he had some jazz chops, and I just liked his style. And the guitar player and the bass player were brothers. And I'm watching Toy and Tommy. And Toy's playing with his thumb, you know. It's like, this is the way I learned it, man. You know?
Yep.
This is the way it is.
Right.
And later on, I'll play. This is just looking at parallels. I end up with Jeff Beck, who throws his pick away. And I'm seeing all this. And he says, "I don't need a pick. I'm going to play my fingers and my thumb and my whammy bar."
Oh, man. Yeah, Jeff was so good that way. So that was Marshall Tucker.
With Marshall Tucker. And just my brother and I just were sitting there going, wait a minute. These guys ought to be on this label. We'll love them. Let's just set it up or try to help them. So they gave us a demo tape, and then we played that for Phil and the label guys. And then we helped them. There's a club called Grant's Lounge where it's still there. It's kind of I don't know what you could compare it to. Yeah. It's a place where everybody ends up jamming, and it's still has a good following. And we got him a gig there a couple nights. So label people came down to see him live, and they got signed. And to this day, and Toy would do this when he was still living, but Doug Gray will say it, and he'll do it even if he doesn't. If I'm not present, he'll tell the story. He said, the reason we made it and got on this label and got going was because of Jimmy Hall and Jack Hall and
Wow.
backing us up.
Man, that's cool because they were, the Allman Brothers kind of came out of nowhere in my world. I was way into the British progressive rock bands and all of that stuff. And it was like, wow. And then the live at the Fillmore East, with long jams, because I was really into the long jams. If there's 2 songs on the side of a record, I was happy. It's like, man, here we go.
A double album live.
Yeah, it started with Cream, Wheels of Fire, the live stuff on there, that side 3 with Crossroads and Spoonful. I pretty much learned.
That was a band I always wanted to see, but I never saw them. Yeah. I did get to see Led Zeppelin.
Wow.
Somewhere in like 68.
Early on.
Pop festival.
See, it's one of my theories is I think Zeppelin was very much based on the Rod Stewart version of Jeff Beck.
Exactly.
That Truth album is like a template for Led Zeppelin, with Even You Shook Me is on there.
Yeah.
And I always thought that, and they were, Jimmy Page and Jeff were contemporaries, there was no rules that said you couldn't do that. But I always thought that those first 2 Jeff Beck albums looked like the template for Led Zeppelin to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And great stuff. I mean, I still listen to those records and, wear them out. And, of course, Tony Newman, who lived here for quite a long time. Right. Tony played on the second one, Beckola.
Oh yeah.
But I was all about but when Capricorn came along, it was another one of those things where it's like anything on that label, I'm going to check out because it's pretty cool. And I mean, even stuff like Captain Beyond, which was
different,
a bizarre
or
combination
White Witch was very different.
Yeah. All that stuff. And I always gravitated towards those labels that seemed to have a sound, a style, and Southern rock was not a thing. It kind of became a thing through Capricorn.
Right. And we felt like with Wet Willie that we weren't the typical Capricorn or Southern rock sounding band, although so we really loved the soul, Sly and the Family Stone, Bobby Womack and Otis Redding and a lot of James Brown and all that. We just were soaking that up. And so we weren't the band with 2 or 3 guitar players that stood at the front of the stage and there's nothing wrong with it. If you got a long hair, sling it.
Yeah.
So we really, that was not quite what we were doing. And that might have, when I look back at even Skinner, for them, to me, it was all about those songs and Ronnie, and they had good guitar work from the beginning and certain sounds, Alan.
Yeah, the 3 guitars always took it to a different place,
and it was bigger. It was rocking, and we were more groove oriented, but we still were among those.
But you fit into that style. But I mean, anytime you pick up the saxophone and play, it takes it to another place.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and I've always enjoyed that because, the harmonica, you think, everybody kind of associates that with a certain kind of style for the most part, with a few exceptions. But with saxophone, it can be any kind of music. And I think at that time, horns were not necessarily out of style. They just weren't as common in rock and roll bands. And I think, you brought that in and still, I think that's awesome that you've been able to incorporate your voice, the harmonica and the sax, and just keep it flowing all the time. I mean, I've been a huge fan since the first time I heard you, and never dreamed that we'd get to hang out and be friends, and find out recently that we have the same birthday. April 26th is kind of fun.
Here's to us.
Yes, we're in good company there. Dwayne Eddy and Phil Kaufman and Carol Burnett.
Yeah, she's in a new series on TV. I was going, there she is, still here.
Unbelievable. It really is. So let's kind of wrap this up by talking a little bit about where we are here in the Musicians Union boardroom. I moved here not knowing anything about the union, and some guy that I respected said, "Hey kid, join the union." And I didn't really understand what it was, but over the years, it's been a real game changer. And Nashville has a history of doing things the right way without people having to force people to do it.
Yeah. So, when Wet Willie signed our contract with Capricorn, and we were in the studio doing our first album or so, the local representative, one of the heads, president of the local in Atlanta, came to the studios, and we sat down with him, and he said, I think you should join the union, and it'll behoove you, and you can start getting credit, or, we've got your back. And that guy's name was Ed Steely, and later on his son was in his place doing the same job. And I haven't fallen out of the union or gotten kicked out or whatever since then. When I moved here, I met Otto Bash and some of the other people in this union and signed up here, and I liked it. He was a kind of tough guy.
Yes.
And he was, go by this rule. You got to do it this way. And that just made me, and I think a lot of other people go, yeah, we're playing local gigs and we're going to put every one of these shows on the card. And we work to do that. And I am now a lifetime member and one who has started receiving my pension in the past few years, as well as staying with my SAG-AFTRA and been around to see SAG-AFTRA unite. I was on the board with AFTRA for a few years and got to be around that. But on both sides of that coin, I don't regret 1 minute of it. And I always encourage players, and I talk to some of them will start complaining, the dues, come on.
Yeah, to me, the way we've tried to approach it over the last 16 years that I've been here is it's a value proposition. You got to show people that this has meaning and value. And when things from the distant past show up in other places, we can get people paid for that if there's a paper trail. And if you're just working for cash, that's all you're ever going to ever see. You're not going to see any of those back end things.
And I've been like that fund that finds these movie little placements.
The Film Musician Secondary Markets Fund.
Yeah, and it's definitely come in handy.
And you got another one coming up here with Keep On Smiling again.
Right, that. And I'm trying to really stay on top of that because, I'm not as familiar as much with Amazon and some of the streaming movies.
Yeah. Right. And we just negotiated in this new contract with the movie and television folks that we now have, because the streaming stuff did not have a residual component. It was kind of a loophole because in the early days, it would call it new media, which means, we're not making any money off streaming, but we now know that is not the case. So now we actually built into this new contract a residual thing similar to how it works with films.
Yeah.
To where 6 months in, it starts paying into the residual fund. So that's a big step forward, but it does make a difference. And I know, we hope one day we're going to get this AM FM terrestrial royalties together, because that will free up so much money overseas that people are still withholding because we don't pay them for all the music that gets played from other countries in the US, which is frankly not that much.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I never dreamt I'd get into all this side of it, but it's about respect, and it's about the music business not having to be a win-lose situation. It can be a win-win if everybody treats each other the right way. And that's kind of our whole philosophy is based on that. And in our world, in a right to work for less state like Tennessee, that's the only way you can do
for
it.
Less.
Yeah, right to work for less. You have to get people to want to do it rather than trying to force anybody. And,
we've talked about a situation, and I'm not going to put it on this recording, with right now unnamed person who pays more than scale, but would never put it on the card. And,
and it takes away the intellectual property rights.
Yeah, I know.
And we got,
but it's right to work, so we can't argue.
And you can't force people to do the right thing, but this whole community in Nashville is built on people doing the right thing. And I'm grateful for that. I came here knowing one person all I wanted was to be in a band that people liked. I didn't know there were any other jobs in the music business, let alone being president of a labor union. But, you know, I love it. Getting people paid is almost as much fun as playing the bass.
Yeah.
And speaking of, why don't we close out with a little blues? We've been
let's-
talking about the blues. We got to live the blues, you know? Just give me a tempo and I'll kick in behind you there.
How about you got to move like this? You got to move. You got to move. You got to move, child. You got to move. But when the law get ready, oh, you got to move. You may be rich, you may be poor, you might be high, you might be down low. When the law get ready, oh, you got to move. Move, got to move. You got to move. You got to move. But when the Lord gets ready, you got to move. You got to move. And there you have it.
Jimmy Hall, y'all. Thanks so much, Jimmy. Love you, man.
Yeah.